People filed into Hope Fellowship Church in Frisco to say one final goodbye to 17-year-old Austin Metcalf. Some people wore football jerseys to the service as Metcalf was a member of the Frisco Memorial High School varsity football team. He was also a member of the track and field team. During a track meet earlier this month, Metcalf was killed after he was stabbed in the chest during a fight and died in his twin brother's arms. The fight was with 17-year-old Karmelo Anthony, a student athlete from a different Frisco high school. Arrest documents say the fight was over a seating dispute in the bleachers.
What's up, y'all? My name is Lerone Kuntz. I'm a former correction officer. Today, we're diving into the tragic case of 17-year-old Karmelo Anthony, who has been charged as an adult with first-degree murder in the death of Austin Metcalf. Now, this case has raised a lot of questions, especially about Texas's stand your ground law and whether Karmelo can claim self-defense. Let's break it down. Could Karmelo be innocent under Texas law, or is he going to be facing life in prison? Let's find out. Right after that incident, the police were called, and we have an arrest report that was issued by the police that responded. The officer who arrested Karmelo writes in his report, and I'm going to read his arrest. And he says, "There was a chain link fence that separated me from the suspect. I gave the suspect instructions to keep his hands up in the air. During this time, the suspect said verbally out loud, 'I was protecting myself.' It should be noted that I had not questioned him about the incident when he made that comment. I asked him if he had any weapons, and he said no. I patted him down for weapons while we were walking along the fence, and I did not locate any on his person. I instructed the male to continue walking along the fence, which he complied, towards an area where there was an opening in the fence that led off the track. While walking him off the track, the suspect also said he put his hands on me. I then detained the suspect in handcuffed behind his back, and had him sit down on the ground. Officer A. Reese had arrived on the scene at that time. I conducted another pat down of his person and then searched his person after he gave me consent. No weapons were located. While the suspect sat on the ground, I advised that I had the alleged suspect. The suspect then responds and says, 'I'm not alleged. I did it.' Next, Officer Reese and I walked the suspect to patrol vehicle number 2412. As we were walking to the squad car, the suspect was emotional and said, 'He put his hands on me. I told him not to.' I did not question the suspect about the incident while he was escorted to the patrol vehicle. I searched his person once again, and I had him sit in the backseat area, driver's side, of patrol vehicle number 2412. While the suspect was in the back seat, I noticed fresh blood on his left middle finger. I verbally acknowledged that I saw the blood out loud so that it would be captured on my body-worn camera. It should be also noted that the suspect asked me, 'Is he going to be okay?' while he was in the back seat." Okay, those are the statements of Karmelo Anthony as per the police report. Now, people were there. This was at a track meet under a tent, and the other students were there, and they saw what happened. And the police also interviewed two students, and they have this in this arrest report, what they say they saw. So I'm going to read some of that as well. The following is a summary of my contact with the students whose name is redacted. Now, this is from Officer Wexel. He says, "The following is a summary of my contact with redacted. Advised he was sitting under the Memorial High School pop-up tent with his team and was near the victim. Austin and the suspect, which is Karmelo, we know, who was later identified as Karmelo Anthony. Anthony was from Central High School and was sitting under the Memorial High School tent. Austin had told Anthony that he needed to move out from under their team's tent, and Anthony grabbed his bag, opened it, and reached inside and proceeded to tell Austin, "Touch me and see what happens." No one really thought Anthony really had any weapons in his bag, and Austin proceeded to touch Anthony. And then Anthony told Austin to punch him and see what happens. A short time later, Austin grabbed Anthony to tell him to move, and Anthony pulled out what Redacted recalled as a black knife and stabbed Austin once in the chest and then ran away. Austin began grabbing his chest and telling everyone to get help. Redacted advised he did not know Anthony's name, but stated another Memorial Track member, Redacted, was friends with Anthony and he could identify Anthony. So that's the eyewitness testimony. There's also another eyewitness testimony, and the officer Fisher, he adds this to his report, his conversation with another eyewitness. He says, "I asked him what happened, and he stated they were all sitting on the bleachers under a Memorial High School tent when another male, who he did not know, walked over and sat under the tent." Redacted then said Austin, the victim, told this male that since he did not go to Memorial, he had to leave the tent. Austin and the male went back and forth, and then Austin stood up and pushed the male to get him out of the tent. Redacted had said during this time of arguing, the male was reaching around in his bag he had. It was at this time the male took out a knife and stabbed Austin and then left the scene. This was all Redacted remembered when he talked to me. Okay, so we get sort of like a picture of what happened. Now, there were a lot of people there. At the end of this police report, they have a lot of redacted names here. They confiscated people's phones. So there's going to be a lot of evidence that's going to be made public before the trial and during the trial. So we don't know the full picture, but we get a good idea of what happened. Now, I'm going to go to the law. The law in Texas, the stand your ground law. And first, I'm going to go to a paper that was written by State Bar of Texas. And this paper is Texas Perspectives on Firearms Law. And in this paper, it talks about self-defense and it talks about stand your ground. So we're going to start with Chapter 5, Self-Defense and the Castle Doctrine. When is deadly force unlawful? Okay, and it talks about the origins of the Castle Doctrine. The Castle Doctrine is a common law principle that began in England in the 1600s, and it is pretty basic. It says a man's house is his castle. For a man's house is his castle, and his home his safest refuge. And it gives a person the right to protect his home, and he can use force or deadly physical force to repel someone who is attacking him in his home. Over the years, this principle has been adopted by the United States, and Texas has expanded this law, that this principle or this law that used to cover just your home is expanded to cover an individual who was in public. Now, in 2007, the Texas Assembly, they created Senate Bill 378. Now, I'm going to read some of Senate Bill 378. It says, Senate Bill 378 created a presumption of reasonableness, meaning they're going to give you the benefit of the doubt, a presumption of reasonableness with respect to an actor's belief that force was immediately necessary to protect the actor from another's use or attempted use of unlawful force. Now, In this case, the actor is Karmelo Anthony. Okay. Now, I'm assuming that Karmelo Anthony is going to say that he was defending himself and he's going to try to use this castle law or this expanded castle doctrine, which is stand your ground, to defend himself. So in this case, the actor is Karmelo Anthony. So this bill created the presumption of reasonableness with respect to an actor's belief that force was immediately necessary to protect the actor from another's use or attempted use of unlawful force, as long as three conditions exist. Okay, they're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. As long as three conditions existed. The first condition, he knew or had reason to believe the person whom force was used against was engaged in one of the unlawful acts listed in the statute. Now, I would assume that the unlawful act that Anthony and his team would be referring to is the fact that Austin put his hands on him. That is assault. And I'm sure that that's unlawful and in the statute. So he's clear there. But then it says, when we're talking about the three conditions that existed, it says, the second one is, he did not provoke the person whom force was used against. Meaning that if you're the actor, in this case, if you're Karmelo Anthony, you cannot provoke the person whom you use force against. Now, from the testimony that we read from the arrest report, the eyewitnesses are saying that Karmelo said, touch me and see what happens. Punch me and see what happens. That, in my opinion, is provoking someone to do something. And under this Senate Bill 378, which was ratified, you cannot provoke a person whom force was used against and claim self-defense under this expanded castle doctrine, which is stand your ground. The other thing is that the third thing is, and he wasn't otherwise engaged in criminal activity. Senate Bill 378 specifically stated that an actor had no duty to retreat if attacked in a place where he had the right to be present, right? So this means that the actor, Karmelo Anthony, had no duty to retreat, meaning that he didn't have to back up, he didn't have to leave, he didn't have to run away. If he's attacked in a place where he had a right to be, which was the track field, which he had a right to be. He was participating in the track event, so he had a right to be there. But then it goes on and says, as long as the actor didn't provoke the attack, As I just said, the witnesses are saying that Anthony provoked the attack. So this is a paper that was written by the State Bar of Texas, right? So let's go to the actual penal code. All right, let's just go to the source now, the actual penal code. Penal Code Chapter 9. Okay, it starts with definitions, and we're just going to look at deadly physical force. The definition of deadly physical force means force that is intended or known by the actor to cause, or in the manner of its use or intended use, is capable of causing death or serious bodily injury. Now we're looking at that definition because Karmelo used deadly physical force here. Okay. Now we're going to scroll down. Okay. To self-defense. Section 9.31. Self-defense. And we're going to B, and it says, a person is justified in using force against another when and to the degree the actor, that is Karmelo, reasonably believes the force is immediately necessary to protect the actor against the other's use or attempted use of unlawful force. The actor's belief that the force was immediately necessary as described by this section is presumed to be reasonable if the actor. Okay, now this is Karmelo, he's the actor. The actor's belief that the force was immediately necessary as described by this subsection is presumed to be reasonable if the actor, and one does not apply to this incident. And I'm going to leave a link to this penal law, these penal laws, so you can read this for yourself. Number 1 does not apply to this incident, but 2 does. And it says, did not provoke the person against whom the force was used. The actor's belief that the force was immediately necessary as described by this subsection is presumed to be reasonable if the actor did not provoke the person against whom the force was used. Karmelo is the actor, and he did provoke the person against whom the force was used. So that is self-defense. So this, by definition, does not fall under what is self-defense. Okay? Now, it goes into the use of force against another is not justified. It's going to explain when it's not justified. It's not justified, 1, in response to a verbal provocation alone. Meaning, if you're in an argument with someone and they say things to you, you cannot use force against them. It's not justified because everybody has the freedom of speech. They can say what they want. Okay? So the verbal is not a reason to use force. But we're going to scroll down to 4. 2 and 3 don't apply. 4 says, if the actor provoked the other's use or attempted use of unlawful force. The use of force against another is not justified if the actor, in this case is Karmelo, provoked the other's use or attempted use of unlawful force. And then it goes unless, and then it has some things that really don't apply here. But one thing in particular that I want to point out, it talks about carrying a weapon in violation of section 4602. Okay, now we know Karmelo was carrying a weapon, or it's been reported that he had a weapon, okay, in his bag. Now, what this section is saying is giving reasons about provoke the other use or attempted use of force. And it's pretty much saying that if you have words with someone, this is how I understand this. If you have words with someone and it's kind of heated, and then you try to say, you know what, forget it. I'm going about my business. You can do that. And if you cannot leave and you have to use force, you're still justified in using force. But it's not justified if the person is carrying a weapon in violation of section 46.02. That means the actor. That means if a Karmelo is carrying a weapon, then the force is unjustified or not justified. So let me just read it all together. 5, if the actor sought an explanation from or discussion with the other person concerning the actor's differences with the other person while Karmelo was carrying a weapon in violation of section 4602. Okay, that's the one that applies. Now it says also be possessing or transporting a weapon in violation of section 46.05, but that refers to a gun. This is section 46.02. Now we're going to go to section 46.02 in the penal code. Okay. Section 46 is the chapter on weapons. Section 4601 is the definitions of weapons. And we're going to go down to 6, which talks about knives, and it says location restricted knife means a knife with a blade over 5 1/2 inches. This is a location restricted knife. Now, we don't know how long the knife was that Karmelo had. We don't know whether it was over 5 1/2 inches. If it was, it's considered a location restricted knife. Okay. Now we're going to go down to the section 46.02. Section 46.02, unlawful carrying weapons. That means this is against the law to carry this weapon. And it says a person commits an offense if the person. Okay, now we're going to go down to the section that applies. Now, like I said, I'm going to leave a link for this document so you can look at the things that I'm going over, that I'm passing up, because I don't think it applies here. So we're just going to go with unlawful carrying weapons. A person commits an offense if the person, let's scroll down, A-4, a person commits an offense if the person intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly carries on or about his or her person a location restricted knife. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2 is younger than 18 years of age at the time of the offense. Karmelo had a knife and he was younger than 18. Number 3 is not A, on the person's own premises or premises under person's control. That means he's not at his home. He's not on his premises. He's not on a premises under his control, as is like a car or something. Okay. He's at the track. And then C, under the direct supervision of a parent or legal guardian of the person. He was not under his parents' supervision at the time. So it is technically unlawful to carry a knife intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly carrying on or about his or her person a location restricted knife. Now, like I said, it's 5 1/2 inches. If it's over 5 1/2 inches, it's restricted. So my conclusion is that Karmelo will not be able to use the stand your ground law as a defense. He will not be able to use the fact that he is defending himself lawfully and has the right to use deadly physical force in this situation because he provoked Austin to touch him. He provoked Austin to punch him. All right, this is tragic because this is a 17-year-old high school student, senior, a standout athlete in football and track with a 3.7 grade point average, who has never been arrested before in his life, never have been into any trouble, and is being charged as an adult with first-degree murder, which carries a sentence of life imprisonment. So, my condolences go out to the Metcalf family, to Austin's brother, Hunter, who was there on the scene and held his brother while his brother passed away. My condolences go out to his mother, his father, and all the kids that had to see this and witness this and have to live with this image. And my sympathy goes out to Anthony's family as well. Karmelo Anthony's family, who have to deal with the fact that their son is in a lot of trouble and may have to spend the rest of his life in prison. Thank you once again for coming by and checking me out. Don't forget to leave your comments, subscribe, like this video, and until next time, as always, peace and stay safe.
Like he's a great leader. That's why I always want to tell him, like, I always wanted to be like him in that sense. It's like how he just communicates and has great ways with people all the time. And I always looked up to him for like that. He was a big brother in a sense, the same age, but he was a big brother to me.
We just want to make sure that everybody knows how much that Austin is going to be still in our lives, as far as in our memories and our hearts forever. You know, it's going to be really hard. This is going to be really hard.